Some of the most impressive build sets in Conan Exiles have been made that way with extensions. Yamatai Towers, Argossean Observatory, even sets like Sandstone have seen a ton of value added through its own extension, Sandstone Timber. Everyone loves a good extension, but which set is in desperate need and should be next in line to get extended? Today, we're going to find out. Firstly though, we should probably talk about the elephant in the room, the age of fixes. A lot of the more recent Bazaar bundles like Hyrcanian Stables, Market Props and so on have been in the admin panel for a long time before they've released, so we know they weren't developed fresh for the update cycle in which they arrived. That being said, as of late there have been one or two Bazaar bundles that weren't added to the admin panel until quite recently, which could indicate that funcom are still working on some select Bazaar bundles. However, despite the age of fixes focusing on, of course, fixes, the Bazaar will likely still get drip-fed content to keep some money rolling in. Let's be honest, build sets are probably the best selling items in the entirety of the Bazaar, and I think the extensions we'll talk about in this video would produce quite a pretty penny. So, what are they? Well, Conan has many building sets, but not all are created equal. In fact, some of them are pretty rough. However, I've whittled it down to a top 3 of the sets that I think really need an extension. In third place, Black Ice. It's timeless, but let's be honest, it could do with some love. It's not impossible to get good builds out of this set, but being one of the oldest sets and part of the base game, it could definitely do with some work. Mods have already done a fairly good job of this in the past. I believe Glass Constructions and more added Black Ice castle pieces that really elevated the set, and Black Ice could really do with a modern day refresh from funcom themselves. In the past, we've already seen them do the same with Sandstone Timber, which I think was a pretty successful extension, and of course the arcane pieces, which didn't go to the same extent as Sandstone Timber, but did add a lot of value, so I think Black Ice could definitely benefit from an extension. Coming in second place is Stable from the Riders of Hyboria DLC. Now, I think we can all say for certain the focus of this DLC was not the actual building set, it was the mounts. However, the Stable building set is, frankly, kind of abysmal. Outside of the utility in the stable gate and some of the fencing, it's one of the roughest and most incomplete sets in the entire game. There is so much more that could be done with the theme of this DLC, and an extension could really breathe a whole new life into the stable building set, and honestly, I think it needs it. That being said, I think there is one more building set that is possibly even worse. Controversial opinion time. Finally, in first place is Khitan. The Imperial East pack was the first DLC ever released for Conan Exiles back in 2018, and let's be honest, it shows. Over the years I've tried and tried with Khitan, mixed it with different things, used different techniques, and it's always just felt, honestly, absolutely horrid. Its issues, much like Yamatai, are mostly a symptom of when it was released. The plain red walls are horrendously monotonous, the foundations do very little to give it any meaningful lift, and everything is just the same crimson vibe across the board. Considering it was the first DLC, that's not so unusual. Standards back then were nowhere near as high as they are now, but in my opinion, for 2025, it's really lacking anything unique or attractive. The set is just very flat and samey across the board. Khitan just stands out as probably one of the worst sets in the game for me. The thing that makes it even worse is the source inspiration for the set is so good. The culture of Khitai is based mostly on ancient China, and if we just take a glance at some of the architecture from that period, well, there's a lot of inspiration right there, stuff that could translate very well into Conan Exiles if you rough it up a bit, maybe give it some more of that arcane energy that we see as an inspiration for the aesthetic of Liu Fei and his recent companion bundle in the Bazaar. You can actually already get a very slight taste of how successful a Khitan extension might be by mixing the Yamatai Towers extension pieces in with Khitan. The overhanging awnings add so much more to the base set with only those couple of items. Throw in some extra Zingaran and arcane pieces and you're already getting closer to what a modern day Khitan set should look like. Now, whilst you can get Khitan to work by adding other sets in like this, let's be honest, it really is time for Khitan to get a refresh. Prior to its own extension, Yamatai was, if we're being realistic, not that great. Ancient Japanese architecture was such an iconic style, yet Yamatai just wasn't living up to it, yet in a single extension, that set has gone from kind of meh to arguably one of the best in the entire game. Khitan could get that too, but at the moment, the base level of the set is so plain that even adding in lots of extra pieces from other sets, there's still an underlying layer of monotony right at the root. I've tried Khitan over and over and over again across the years to varying levels of success, but in the end I am firmly of the opinion that it really, really needs an extension. Speaking realistically, would an extension for Khitan actually be possible? I definitely think so. Conan's building sets seem to be the most consistently popular items in the Bazaar just based on how often I see them, and I think I've said this before in comments and in Discord, but I genuinely think that a good Khitan expansion would print money for funcom. Moreover, the devs have added a fair amount of Khitan themed bundles into the Bazaar recently. Call it conspiratorial maybe, but could they be testing the waters for a Khitan extension? If memory serves, we got some Yamatai themed bundles both before and after the release of Yamatai Towers, and we also got some Argossean bundles before and after the release of Argossean Observatory. Could this be reintroducing the Khitan culture back to people's minds in preparation for a Khitan extension? It's definitely possible, and perhaps more importantly, I think the incentive structure is there. Practically as well, whilst an extension to Stable and Black Ice would be great, what culture really leans into them? Nothing in particular comes to mind, so the developmental process behind them would likely be far more involved than something like Khitan, where you have Howard's works in the extended universe to look back on, workshopping and styling has already been done in the original DLC and the follow-up Bazaar bundles, and frankly, it's likely just easier to develop. Assuming we do get another building set extension in the future, which I think there is a decent chance of that happening, I wouldn't be too surprised if it is indeed a Khitan extension. That, however, is just my opinion. Is there a building set you would prefer to get extended instead of Khitan? I know some others are a bit lacking too. Arena's kind of old and tired now, Frontier could really benefit from one. Even tier 1 and tier 2 materials like Flotsam, Stone Brick and so on could be revolutionised by expanding them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Anyway, that will wrap us up for today. Thank you for watching. I noticed a slight pattern emerging with some of the recent Khitan bundles that have made their way onto the Bazaar. Maybe it's just me, but I think funcom might be setting the stage for a Khitan extension at some point in the future, but let me know what you think. If you enjoy the videos, do check out the Patreon page through the link in the description. There's early access to videos, wallpapers, video credits and much more, and joining us helps out the channel massively. Again, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.